On Sunday, the 23rd of November, the Times reported another heartbreaking situation where a nanny had harmed the children that they were employed to look after. My heart goes out to them, and I want to discuss the methods, how a nanny can be recruited, and how to look out for the checks that need to be done. I started working in childcare in 1982, and I qualified as an NNEB trained nanny. I'm saddened how childcare is recruited today, as the checks are not good enough. Much of this is due to the trusting of internet, and happy to recruit from this. For an older generation like myself, I'd never trust internet for childcare. For most other things which are material, I'm happy to do so. To gain the NNEB qualification, we trained for 2 years, a combination of 1 week in placement and 1 theory in college. This gave the establishments time to assess us, not only in our theory, but also in our actual physical care of the children. We were monitored, supervised and mentored throughout this time. All placements carried regular checks on us and a report at the end. I set up my nanny agency in 1996, but stopped running this in 2018 due to taking a different career route in training nannies. But when I set up, there was no internet. We used fax and postal methods. Interviews were always face-to-face and references clarified via post. As the internet developed methods and changed, the CVs were either posted or they were sent by email, mainly via email for speed. In the last 10 years, childcare has changed significantly in recruitment methods, and more internet childcare sites have opened up, causing a few problems for nanny agencies. It's impossible for agencies to compete on costs of the internet with all the work and scrutiny they do on every nanny they meet, whether or not they place them. Agencies do a grand job. They will match nannies to your requirements. If they don't, then they're not the agency for you. The cost incurred is all the work before the placement, and the reputable nanny agencies exceed the checking process. They will interview the nanny, check details, question methods, and often have a local knowledge of where people have worked, references verified, and after a placement, support you and the nanny. So, what should a nanny be? A nanny should be somebody who cares for your children, will help educate them, develop them, give them healthy meals and a fun time. They will socially interact with the children so that they can meet others and mix with children that will go to the same nursery or schools. This is really important. But we need to know that anyone can call themselves a nanny. They don't have to be trained and they don't have to have any experience. And this is why it's so important that parents are careful on the recruitment process that they use. So now we're going to look at how recruitment is found. We'll look at the nanny agency first of all. So a reputable nanny agency will interview the nanny correctly. This will not be a 15-minute interview, it should be at least an hour. They will check the DBS, training and references, and will be able to assess if the nanny has a genuine love and expertise for the role by sourcing lots of information before sending them out to you. What's missing with the nanny agency? There shouldn't be any information missing. They should have scrutinised the CV, checked references and had a really good chat with them why they went into this. There are great agencies out there. Some of them you will find on our links. There's also the Association of Nanny Agencies that have a strict code of practice for their members, and they are checked. The costs do vary widely as to where you live and the agency themselves. So I've seen recruitment from £200 to up to 5 weeks' salary. But you don't pay the agency until they find you someone. And there's no cost to the nanny to register with them. Some agencies will also offer you a consultancy service. This service means that should you find a nanny, that they will then look through the CV, check for DBS, check references for you, and give you some advice on taking a nanny. This is normally at the lower end of the cost of the £200. They will just charge you an admin fee. The consultancy service will not do the search for you. It just checks the information. So let's look at the internet now. So any nanny can put their details up, and parents are left to check the CVs and references. Parents are able to advertise a post, and nannies can apply direct. Some sites do charge the nanny to be on the site, and some charge the parents as well. So what's missing with the internet? Well, nannies often say they've got qualifications but can't produce the evidence or the references. And I've known nannies that I refuse to work on gain employment through this method. So parents need to be very careful about the details and not just take it as it is true. I would never accept a qualification unless I saw the original certificate, and the same for any references. I would look into it myself. The cost, well, there is sometimes a fee to post, but generally it is very cheap. Personal recommendation. This can be very helpful because it will be through a friend or someone you know. Again, even though they know them, as a parent, I would double check everything. I would read the CV, I would check references, I would check all the documentation as well. You also need to make sure that the nanny is the right person for your family, because not all nannies suit every family. We then have Ofsted. Nannies can now become Ofsted registered so that the parents get help with the fees of the childcare. What we have to remember with Ofsted is the nanny isn't actually interviewed by Ofsted. They don't check references, they don't look at the CV, they will just want to see that they've got training in childcare, they have a DBS, first aid and insurance, and that is all they will do. What I found was a lot of parents would think they're Ofsted registered, they must be okay. So it is really important that the methods that we've been talking about, you follow up. So what are we going to see with our nannies? Well, we need to see that they have the details that we require. So there's the DBS, which is, or some will recognise as the police check. That is now on the update service as well. So what a nanny does is they will apply for their DBS, and then as soon as they get that through, they can then apply to be on the update service. That gives the option for the parent to actually check that nothing's happened from when they first took out their DBS to the time that you want to recruit them. If a nanny hasn't got the update service, then they should, I shouldn't use the word have to, but they should actually do another DBS because you don't know what's gone on in between. The other situation is the training in childcare. You know, one of my famous sayings was, would you drag someone off the street to cut your hair with no training? I think most people would answer no. But when we're looking at our children, very often a nanny is looking after them between 8 to 10 hours a day. They are left on their own with the children, and I would want to see somebody who had training. Training can take place from 8 hours to do a common core skills or to full-time courses. But I would not take on somebody who had zero training in childcare. You also need to see a first aid certificate, and it needs to be in paediatric first aid. This lasts for 3 years and then needs to be renewed. Ofsted are asking for public liability insurance and insurance for nannies, so that's what they will need, and references. Sometimes people offer you a telephone number to call a reference, but that's okay. But I would want to see it followed up with a written as well, and we're going to go into more detail on that in another slide. So training. Many years ago, if you're looking back in 1982 when I first trained, normally if you wanted to get in childcare, it was a 2-year full-time course. We then transferred to sometimes NVQs, which would be done whilst working, and training. But most training was full-time at college. Cash is one of the very well recognised establishments that have various courses available for childcare. So look those up and see what the nanny has done. And now the NNEB is under the Cash certificate. Common core skills. This is about the Ofsted. They insist on the nanny having the common core skills for training to go out and become an Ofsted registered nanny. This training covers 6 subjects, and normally the training should be, I think it should be, at least 8 hours. So that gives them a chance to digest the information and actually report back on what they've learned. It's a good basic training for nannies, and they can build on that foundation, but they should know what a nanny is expected to do and the subjects that they need to go through with the children. There are many colleges that also offer part-time courses. With all this information that you can do training for 8 hours for a nanny, then there really is no excuse for anyone wanting to work with children to not actually undertake something with training. Much training is from £50 to do the course, get a certificate, so it is very affordable, and I would recommend parents ask their nannies to do it. So let's look at references. I would highly recommend parents not only have a phone call, but have it in writing as well. So when I used to have nannies that I was unable to place, that I wasn't able to get a written reference for them, they'd offer me phone numbers, but unfortunately sometimes that was a friend or family and not from an ex-employer. So I think it's really important that you find out that they are true and honest references for their capability of working with children. Written, I would always ask for a written reference, but if a nanny gave me a written reference, I would then contact the employer to check that that was the reference they handed to them. If an employer said they would not re-employ again, it can mean that they did not suit the team, and let's be honest, different characters can be a pleasure to work with for some and not to others. So make your judgment on whether or not this person would fit in with you, and check on the final decision. So I employed someone once who didn't have a fantastic reference from an ex-employer, but to be honest with you, it was just a personality clash, and they worked for me for over 7 years and were absolutely great. So you need to check that that person is going to suit your family, and it's not anything that they've done that is untoward towards the children. Okay, so that's the references, and I've given you a link to the .gov website, giving you more information about references. The CV. You need to check every gap in employment and ask them why they left the job. Okay, so that's really important. Don't just take any reason, oh, I didn't have this, I didn't have that. Employment is more jumpy these days. Years and years ago, you used to see people, especially in nannying, in their roles for many years until the children went to the senior school. But now, because of children starting school earlier, more nurseries open, and the cost of a nanny, then often a nanny might only be at the job for a few years. Always ask to see the original copies of training certificates, the original copy of the DBS, and check that they are valid and in date. If a nanny says that they haven't got their training certificate, it's been lost, then you say to them, well, unless it's found, or you ring the establishment and ask for a copy, then I'm unable to clarify that you are actually trained. On the update, you can actually ring and check that all is fine on the update service. If a nanny didn't have an update on the update service, I would make them take another check out. Okay, so the references we've been through. All right, so let's look at the asking for help. I had great pleasure in helping nannies and families throughout the South East and Kent areas that I used to work for over 20 years. And I'm extremely proud to say that those that I met were overall great nannies. And I had one nanny that was in work in her job for 18 years that I placed her in, which was a great investment for that family. At the time, it was about £250 to find a nanny, so over 18 years they really did get good value. And throughout those 18 years, I supported that nanny if she ever had a question she wanted to ask me or the family. So agencies, a really good agency, will be there to support you and the nanny. They advise the nanny on the professional role that they need to do, the jobs that they should be doing for you, and how they should be looking after the children. They will help the nanny with training that she needs to keep updated, and a nanny agency will also advise you as a family on the options of childcare. They will give you recruitment advice continually, and they should give you helpful sheets on employing a nanny, such as draft contracts or put you in touch with someone, helping you with payroll and where to find the insurance, and about DBS. Some nanny agencies will actually do the DBS if the nanny's is out of date. So it's a full support service. To conclude, I think it's really, really important not to just like the person and take them on. It's important that you check the person out, that you have a professional arrangement with you and the nanny. So a contract for employment is drawn up. The wages are paid correctly with tax and national insurance deducted at source. That you agree a gross salary, not a net salary. Bear in mind that if you agree a net salary, your costs could become horrendous. You may not know the nanny's tax code. You don't know if they've got student loans out. You also have pension to pay for. You also have your employer's national insurance. So please don't go down the path of agreeing a net and then finding that you cannot afford the nanny that you wanted to take on. Every other role is a gross salary agreement. There are further places that you can seek help, and I'm going to put links on for agencies that I've worked with for a very long time and other associations. So I hope you found this helpful. Any further information, you can contact Project Action London, who can give you advice and help. Thank you. Bye-bye.